Hi,
Hello,
hi V, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Much better, much better.
Yes, we had connection issues as we were trying to stream this podcast, so I hope you guys understand that these things happened. But we're here and we're excited to talk about what we're talking about.
Exactly. Welcome, welcome, guys, to Approaching Your Future with your hosts, Dana and Kahn and Victor Ribeiro, where we take steps forward towards your goals. And today we'll be discussing a topic that is very fun to both Victor and I. It's a topic that we pay lots of money to study in college. So we're going to be talking about advertising culture in America. So, top of your head, V, what does this topic bring to mind?
It brings to my mind at least like all my college years studying communication, studying design, and finding different ways to communicate with people and understand people. Of course, I mean that's when we're talking about mostly marketing, which is what we graduated on. And of course, there's a difference between marketing and advertising. But when I think of advertising, I think of agencies, I think of big ideas, I think of different ways to bring a message to people's faces without them necessarily noticing that everything that was planned, you know?
I agree, V. I think personally, marketing, advertising, they tend to be almost the same word, guys. Usually, when we're talking about advertising, we're talking about the act of marketing, if that makes sense. And marketing is everything that is strategy and goes behind it, and advertising is the actual act of putting it out there. Whether it is in physical form, digital form, there's many forms to advertise. But we love marketing. I love marketing. I think it really is. We don't even notice how much it influences our culture and everything that we do, everything that we see, everything we perceive is because of marketing or how it's been marketed to us in the past. So I think it's a very cool topic to talk about. But I think that there's a lot of misconceptions with marketing, a lot of misunderstandings with what marketing is, and the ethics of it. So I think that'd be a cool place to start. Talk a bit about marketing and its misconceptions. V, what have you heard people tell you about marketing that you haven't liked, for example?
I don't like when people think that marketing is just about getting things out there. You know, like I think a lot of times when people think of marketing and communication, they tend to assimilate a lot to misinformation and disinformation. At least on where we come from. I mean, like I'm from Brazil, and there've been a lot of cases of like disinformation and misinformation through conversation apps, for example. So that's something that definitely like makes me think like a lot of people don't really know what marketing is about when they start assuming that marketing is just the process of assembling a message and getting to a goal. It's much more than that. And us marketers, people that are working with this right now, we're actually responsible for changing these misconceptions, right? Because we're the newest generation of marketers. We're the people that are going to be making it happen, and where probably other like people just like us that were in college one day will be studying what we're doing. So but yeah, I don't like the misconceptions. I don't like when people think that we're here to misinform, because in reality we're here to inform. And when we're talking about marketing and businesses, there's really not a way to disinform people, right? Because we're just pretty much being the voice of a business. So yeah, pretty much that. I mean, like I could go on and on. There are a lot of reasons why I think that people should have more of a clear understanding of what marketing actually does, because it could help them become successful in their businesses and promoting their ideas.
Exactly, V. I agree completely. I think that first and foremost, we need to understand that marketing goes into everything that is business, communications, any communications with your client or with other businesses. That is marketing. Anything that is social media related, your public image, that is marketing. Any sort of like traditions you have in your company or like things with, for example, HR is marketing for the employees. Everything entails marketing, you know? It's the idea of creating fans, of creating people that support you. And that is marketing. And sometimes we get this misconception with, for example, saying, oh, when they spread all this misinformation about the government or whatever it is, for example, that is another leg of marketing called propaganda. And that is not what we're talking about here. Okay.
Exactly. And I just wanted to add something like, for example, like us marketers, we tend to work with a lot of data and even more behavioral data. And a lot of people think that one of the reasons why we're using that data is to influence and to tell people what to do, when in reality most of the data we have and most of the data we use, us as marketers, that I mean, we have ethics, right? Like, we've learned about ethics, so we know that, like, although there is sensitive information in whatever data we get, but marketing doesn't only evolve around gathering that data and making a better use of it, you know. There are a lot of things that people don't know, that there are a lot of rules that are there that people don't know as well.
That is completely true. There are, for example, there's many laws in place in terms of advertisement, and that is how we've been able to make the industry a cleaner place. Because, for example, we cannot legally talk about another brand in a commercial. We cannot legally say anything that is not truthful in any commercial. Like, there's many different brands and ethics of marketing that those who studied and are proud of their work will take into account. You know, it's really sad for marketers to get a bad rep out of like the people that have done bad things in the past, because we've been consistently trying to change that image of what advertising and marketing is, and it is extremely needed in today's era, digital era, you know. So talking a bit about, we already went over marketing and its misconceptions, guys, and there's different parts of marketing that people maybe don't understand, like as Victor was talking about data. Marketing extends itself from design to copywriting to data analytics to lead generation to growth to website creation and implementation to UX design, which is user experience, to CRMs. There's so many different legs of marketing, to ethnographic studies and focus groups. So my point is, marketing is a whole science in and of itself, you know. And there's so many things that can come out of it that are incredible. And I'm gonna put this example as first and foremost because I think it talks a lot of it's the first example that really showed me personally what marketing is. um for example, when you guys wake up in the morning and you think of like your childhood, and you have that smell of coffee under your nose, for example, doesn't that smell of coffee take you, like every time you smell it anywhere, it takes you back to when you were a kid and your grandparents were putting on the coffee in the morning? Doesn't it remind you maybe of the type of coffee you used to drink, whether it was Nescafe or any other type of coffee? Or for example, what do you call the thing that you put on your arm when you get hurt? What is it called? It's called a band-aid. And why is it called a band-aid? Because the brand called it band-aid. It actually, we took the term, the name of a brand, and created it. Another example. What is the thing that you put on your chest when you're feeling like super sick? And it's like a gel and it's minty.
Vicky, right?
Right, exactly. That gel by itself is already known as Vic. From Brazil to Chile to the United States, we all know what it is. Here they call it Vapor Rub. In Brazil, they call it Vicks. In any Latin American country, a Big Baboru. Like, people take those things and make it their own. It really, advertisement takes a form of its own. It creates a whole culture. So that is the beauty of advertisement in my mind. And It's the idea of bringing back these memories, triggering these nostalgic memories that remind you of other things and add to your knowledge, to what your brain, to your cognitive structure. It's how you call it in psychology. It's what everything that has taught you what everything is, you know.
Yeah, it's like pretty much there are a lot of like psychological components in marketing. As you're researching, there are a lot of things that nowadays we know they work because they appeal to people psychologically. For example, like you said, Donna, like smells and a lot of times visuals too, like which is kind of like the area that I am more, how do I say, like more knowledgeable in, right? Nowadays, for example, like as a graphic designer, I've been seeing different brands promoting themselves with like a vintage look sometimes, or with more of a futuristic look, and those things are important because they're a different form of representation of whatever company's values that is being promoted. So it is very interesting to understand marketing in a way because that means that you just have a broader domain of communication in general. So I think that when we're talking about marketing, it's all the application of communication strategies to a company for the benefit of the company, right?
Exactly. No, exactly. I completely agree, and I think that I think that takes us kind of to our next topic, which is like the evolution of marketing and how it's affected different companies throughout history of America, for example. And I think that advertisement and marketing really starts to pick up in the US in the turn of the century, of the 20th century, you know, with all these booming businesses coming along, the industrial revolution and everything happening. We start seeing a lot of products to market for, you know, a lot of advertisement. And that's when we start seeing Times Square filling up with different ads. And it does so for years and years. It really is like, if you think of one place that is the culprit, like the center of marketing advertisement in the US, that is Times Square. If you have your advertisement on Times Square or on Las Vegas, then you made it. That is the biggest like real estate of advertisement that you can get. And I guess the what do I mean by real estate of advertisement? What does that concept mean?
I guess it's pretty much where you're placing whatever communication or advertisement you have. So in this case, like when we're thinking about Las Vegas, we're thinking of all the buildings that are around the city itself, whether it's like not just visibility, but where people can interact. Sometimes, like I remember seeing Vegas, a building from far that turned into a QR code. I thought that was amazing, you know. Or when you go to to New York City and you see in different areas of the city, by that I mean Manhattan, you go to the Times Square and you're gonna see like all those beautiful ads. But then if you go to different areas of the city, you're gonna start noticing that there's still a lot of ads going on around that city, and each area kind of like matches with their own type of advertisement. Like if you go to Soho in New York, you see a lot of artistic advertisements, which is like honestly mind blowing. I love it, right? So talking about real estate is the location, and connected to that location there are a lot of other facts.
Sorry, guys, I was muted. But that is completely true, as Victor was saying. That is exactly what real estate is. And I want to show you guys a bit of what advertisement has looked throughout the years. First and foremost, starting with this iconic ad. This ad was taught to us during our college career, which is the Volkswagen ads. Okay, so the VW comes into Germany. I don't know exactly what date it comes into Germany. Maybe V might know more. I think right
In the 60s.
yes, it's right after World War II, exactly, right. Um and and the reason why their advertisements are so legendary, it's because the way that they did a new way of advertisement, which was just simple copy. They used a bit of humor. For example, like, and if you run out of gas, it's easy to push. And ads that they used, they said it couldn't be done, it couldn't. Like the very short copy. And when I say copy, I mean the writing. Advertisement copy is the writing on any advertisement. So this was the most well-known ad, lemon, right? So they released this car. This was the first VW car, that was called Lemon, and this is why, and this ad became extremely well known, right? In fact, they have made recreations of this ad, like Lime, for a car that was released much later on. This use of short copy advertisement was used in the 60s, as Victor was saying. It was part of the newspapers, and that is where at that moment the real estate of advertisement was like the biggest in newspapers and magazines, because that's what really circulated at that time. Correct?
Yeah. I mean, before those same strategies started being applied into radio, TV, and of course later on internet.
Exactly. And show you guys now the next page, which is, let me share here. So now we're gonna go and take a look at 60s ads. Let's start with them. 60s ads, they are very interesting. They're very beautifully designed. And I think they have a lot of different components to them. One of them, the biggest being, I think, the design more than anything. It's what stands out in the 60s. It's when we start seeing color. Colors comes being printed, right? Printed, and we're able to have actual color advertisement on newspapers, and that's when we start seeing ads that are similar to the lemon, which was uh, a revolutionary advertisement, if I'm not mistaken. Um, we start seeing other ads recreating very short copy, like for example this one, and they tend to be quite sexist. It's sign of the times. But for example, this cigarette ad, we see a lot of bad Budweiser ads. We have, for example, this giant bag, the can bag. It's a Campbell soup bag advertisement, which I think is really cool. Victor, what are your thoughts on this?
No, I love that you bringing this up. I mean, like, if when we're talking about advertisements from like a while ago, I definitely, what really strikes me is, like, first of all, like, back in this time, one of the first advertisements that I guess comes to my head is the Coca-Cola advertisement, which was like very famous back then. But do you remember, I don't know if you like, yes, Coca-Cola, they were pretty big in advertisement, of course, at this time. They still are nowadays. I mean, like, I when I was young, I would always look forward to start seeing the advertisements for Coca-Cola when they would get to the end of the year, because they had really beautiful Christmas graphics and like really nice commercials for Christmas. And then at the end of the day, people would buy a bunch of like 3 liter Coca-Colas for their family gatherings, and it would work. You know what I mean? But I think something that is really enrooted into the American history, the advertisement of the Uncle Sam. Can you put it on the screen? I think that one is definitely like still used nowadays in a way, and it's been reapplied into so many different ideas, right? Is it like, if you look up Uncle Sam advertisement, I think it was for the Vietnam War, and like, yes, I want you, that one. This is super. It's so, like, I feel like this is so, it's not recent, but this is so much of, like, it became so much of a part of the United States culture, like the US culture, and that's all because of how the United States became powerful in the time of war, right? So it is extremely interesting how all these ideas, they not only speak to people in a different way, but they also become, something that almost timeless. If you don't know, Iron Maiden, they
Yeah.
created a variation of this guy here, and it's super cool.
Yeah, no, and that's exactly what I was thinking. Like, in reality, guys, like, well, first of all, the U.S. is a marketing, the best marketing company of its own. If I'm not, like, I genuinely mean that. Like, the way we see the U.S. as foreigners, it's due to marketing. And this already starts getting on the side of propaganda, but it really is due to marketing. And I want to point something out, because this is when culture starts intertwining and mixing up together. Here, this is Uncle Sam, I want you, for the US Army. And before, we were seeing a Coca-Cola saying face Uncle Sam with a Coke in your hand, which is basically they're telling the person, go to war, go join the army, but join them with a Coke in your hand and you'll be fine. It's basically what they're saying. So it's a really cool play into culture, and we see how one advertisement affects the other and affects the other. For example, like, do you guys have you guys ever seen that really famous Pepsi advertisement in which the guy, the little kid, wants to get it looks like he's gonna get a Coke, and he gets a Coke out, and then he uses it to stand to be able to click the Pepsi. I don't know if you guys have seen that ad. It's a super famous advertisement. I'm a big Pepsi fan. That's why I talk about it. But my point is, that is a direct response to an advertisement that Coke had released before, and so they start talking to each other. Advertisements create culture, create the culture of brands, the culture of how brands interact. They create voice.
Yeah, and mostly also because a lot of these companies they own they have so much wealth, they have so much capital to invest on these ideas. They end up also being part of like how the culture is being dictated, right? Like nowadays, for example, people watch the Super Bowl, and of course, I mean everybody knows like each commercial just to be there, they spend millions just to be there, like just to have a placement in the Super Bowl day, right? So it is interesting how it like a lot of times those companies they're using trendy ideas to bring back to people like what they've been, kind of like things from their own culture, and they're being reapplied into those communication strategies, trendy ideas. I find that interesting because it is a way to not only be marketing history but also to influence people, to influence their taste, to influence what they say, to influence how they look, what they consume. So that's why I like to say, Donna, like communication is an amazing thing. It's a powerful tool, but it can be so dangerous.
No, I agree completely, completely. And like, we see the danger of them in other areas, like when we talk about propaganda, like Nazi propaganda, that type of propaganda. You can also see how advertising and propaganda can affect the whole culture. It really can. It can affect a whole country. It can affect a whole like history of the world by having World War II, and which was greatly pushed through propaganda. The Nazi view. So it's very interesting and important to be ethical with advertisement and with the power to communicate. And when we
Keep going. Sorry.
and when we, for example, when we show here some of the 80s ads, now we're going into the 80s and we start seeing more color. We see the difference in trends. People in the 80s used to use a lot of like bright colors, pastel colors. It's a time where people are doing those, what are the names? I'm sorry, I forgot, but it's like those yoga dancing with the
Yeah,
videotapes.
the power dance, like when people are like exercising together, right?
Exactly, exactly. And not only that, the cool thing about the 80s is that we start seeing video. That's when NTV comes around. We start seeing commercials. We start seeing a lot of video advertisement. And for example, we can see here that there is a lot of video advertisement in the 80s. They are much more, of course, they're very different to what they were, to what they are today. But you can see, like, for example, Apple comes out, A's for Apple. And Apple has had a very different way, innovative but different way to advertising than they do today, and than they did from everyone else in their time. you know and for example, here we have a Big Mac ad, or another McDonald's ad. And I think that, or cigarettes become very much highly advertised in the 80s, in the 70s, in the 60s. um right, V?
No, yeah, I just wanted to add how like people nowadays they collect posters like this, like like old advertisements for cigarettes because now they're banned. Like people cannot advertise cigarettes the same way they used to, and people cannot advertise alcohol the same way they used to. So like a lot of these things they became kind of like how do you say a reliquia, like
Yeah, a
you know,
relic.
a relic, Yeah, that's right. So just wanted to add that because it's so interesting, and I really love this Newport ad.
Me too. I think it's gorgeous, and we actually had classes in which we had to recreate some of these ads, but they are truly beautiful. They're great to look at. But here we see how mediums start changing. People start switching from print ads to maybe video ads to ads that go in the movie theater, in the big movie theater. So this is when we see mediums starting to influence, and if we jump like, let's say, 20 years forward and we look into 2000 ads, they're completely different. They do become completely different, and it is a lot of video. They still have some of the similar techniques, but they do become different. And I think that is when we start seeing, for example, like different methods of advertisement, digital advertisement, different ways of communicating that are not just visually in print, right?
Yeah, I mean, like the more technology goes forward, of course, like the more advertisements are kind of like being, they kind of like innovate, right? So, and it's really interesting because each different decade has a style. Like you were showing, like their 60s, they have like a very different distinct type of like way of advertising. Then 80s became more, more of like a lover of technology because all these computers were coming up in the 80s, and people kind of like got really really in love with that, like what we call nowadays, I don't know, like vapor wave style, because I really don't know what the name would be right now, but and that creates a sense of nostalgia too nowadays, because a lot of people from the 80s, when they saw those advertisements, they were kind of like, it was a part of their lives. I mean, they were not as exposed to advertisements as people are nowadays. So it's definitely really interesting to see throughout the different years how technology has made advertisements so different and has innovated so much.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think it's even kind of cool how these ads, they're done like very old school Photoshop, and you can almost see how they're cut, how the person is cut here, and it's really fun. Like, I think, for example, the use of space is different to what we would do today, right, V? And this is a complete Nokia ad, So like, and we see a couple other here, like it's super interesting. What do you think, V?
I feel like each, for example, one of the things that we learned in advertisement, like as we were studying advertisement, it's like how a lot of big companies will invest millions to get these ideas out. And these millions, a lot of times, like if you are smart, you can bring the same results to your client on a budget. Because when we're thinking of that, those images, it's like photography and copy, and then it's just ad placement, and then formalizing campaign. And a lot of times they pay so much, they spend so much money in bringing individuals in a way like us, people that knows brands and people that knows how brands should communicate, so that I find that also very very interesting, and it's an area that a lot of people could find themselves in, like just like me.
I agree. I agree completely. So that is So I just wanted to show you guys a video of how Times Square would look like throughout the years. I think that would be a cool video to show you guys before we go. But that is a bit of information about advertisement, guys. I will show you quickly how 1 second. I will show you quickly how Times Square would look. Let me share it with you. All right. So here you can see how Times Square has changed throughout the year, which is basically like the mecca of advertisement. And after this, we're good to go. So thank you so much for watching. This will be the final video. We are gonna say goodbye right now, and you guys can watch the video and then let us know in the comments what you guys thought. If you guys want to talk a bit more about the topic, you're more than welcome to. But thank you so much for joining us and watching Approaching Your Future with your hosts Dana and Victor, where we discuss different cultural aspects of life in the United States. And we'll be back next Tuesday at 2 p.m. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn your notifications on. And make sure to follow us on Instagram, approach_USA, to keep up with all the latest updates. So let's hit play and enjoy.
Yeah. Well,
V, would you like to add anything?
I mean, I would definitely say that like there's so much that we can talk about in terms of advertising, but I think this video will compile a lot of that. And yeah, thank you so much everyone for watching, and Hoping to see you guys soon.